Hello, my name is Pony7 and welcome IL2 Tank Crew, and today we're going to be doing yet another of our penetration tests, this time the Tiger. Now this time I've actually managed to find some information about the targets we'll be shooting at least the two newest ones. I expect the Tiger will not have really any difficulties at all against the Panzer, not the Panzer, the T-34 76 standard, the player version at least, in penetrating it, especially that one dead ahead, because it's flat on. However, that may not be the case for the other targets. For example, this KV-1 right here. Now, provided editing me actually pays attention at this point, I cannot guarantee he will. The well, I guess I'll at the tab and then explain. We're 50. All right. So, the upper front plate of the KV-1 is 50 millimeters. Not the upper, the middle plate is 50 millimeters, angled at roughly 66 degrees from what I've been able to find. Which, if I now have to tab over, I should have prepared this beforehand. We calculate its angle effectiveness. Its relative thickness from head on is 122 millimeters on the lower front plate, which is a fairly large majority of the front of a KV-1 on the upper hull, which at close range doesn't render it immune to Tiger's gun. Beyond 500 meters, it starts getting to the point where it may not penetrate, and at over a kilometer with the APHE shell, it probably won't penetrate. And 45 degrees, basically, if it hits that part, you're not going through, unless you're shooting at point blank range with your subcaliber ammunition, because at at 45-degree angle hull, that plate has an effective of 173 millimeters. So, it's actually quite tough enough to crack. And then the upper hull is not the shabbiest either. It actually comes in fairly close to the M4 over there. Front on it's only 86, so if you manage to hit the thinner upper front hull with the 88, so you're going to be penetrating. If you angle it, it's the same as the lower hull. Of course, this one is 75 millimeters, angled at 30 degrees on the upper front hull. That editing me can hopefully have done some things and shown it. Quickly grab over here, back, and then we'll jump over to the Sherman here, the old Sherman. Now the Sherman's hull in thickness is 51 millimeters, which doesn't sound like much, but the angle I found for it, roughly what I can find, gives it a maximum back angle away from vertical of 55 degrees, in which that's what I'm going to assume this vehicle has and what I'm going to assume for these numbers, which gives it a relative thickness of 125 millimeters section, which again is not shabby at all. In fact, again, beyond a kilometer, that's going to give some difficulty to the Tiger, I expect. Of course, I haven't actually really changed this mission any at all, except for replacing the tanks in order to keep it somewhat fair for the Tiger, to keep a standardization. However, I expect at longer range with the APHE shell, the Sherman is actually going to, from the front, is going to be difficult to crack. Why did you not do what I want you to? Oh, that's because you went to sign. Is that the wrong one then? That was the wrong one. That is actually, that number I just said was angled at 45 degrees. My bad. At front on, it's actually basically the same as the KV-1, 88 millimeters. So 45 degrees, it'll probably prove some problems for a Tiger, partially due to angles. The front on, it probably won't. And then the I expect... Actually, no, the T-34 over there might also prove some problems. I'm not sure about its angle, so I can't really calculate it, but it looks roughly the same. I'm just going to assume it's the same. Give it armor fitness in, front on 78, which sounds right. No. I mean, it's not shabby, again. These tanks are not shabby in protection. They all, if they're angled correctly, rival the Tiger for protection. Except the Tiger's just got 100 flat ahead right away. But the T-34 76 over there comes to assuming it's 55-degree hull angle and at a 45-degree angle, the front hull has about 110 millimeters of relative thickness, which is not bad considering you start up from about 45 millimeters, so you're over doubling your protection in that case, so quite good. Either way, time to get to the meat and potatoes of this. No. 50. There we go. Now then, we're going to start as we did last time. Front on first, working to the left, and then the back range. And again, as is before, I had to set them to be neutral to avoid them just deciding to blow me apart. And again, provided they survive as long, we're going to give them each 5 rounds. However, I need to make sure insight range is right. Oh, it's a right alt. Okay. Had to remember. We're going to set this 200 since that's rough 300 actually because it's roughly the range. Zoom in so we can see and aim. And anyway, let the testing begin. Just be recording this. Two shots, and that has killed the AB1, which was my expected result in this case. Thus, we shall now move on to the Sherman, which again I expect to, at this angle and range, kill. And that has indeed killed the Sherman in one hit. In fact, there goes the crew doing the bailout animation, except no crew's going to come out. And again, I expect no troubles from this T-34. Yeah, exactly. It may have went all the way through the T-34. Now, these guys over here is where the fun is going to begin. I am, of course, aiming for the front plate. Start about 400. Just that accordingly. In order to give them the best chance as possible, and it looks like that may have hit just on the upper hull there. Yes, I had no trouble at this range. Alright. Kind of expected. But, you never know, they may bounce. I have seen some shots bounce. That has indeed killed the Sherman. Very dead. And next, of course, RT-34, which once again, at this close range, it's just got too much penetration. And once again, right to left, long range targets. This is about 700 meters. One. Again, aiming for the upper front, if at all possible. And it's hit and killed. Except, I hope at least that my hypotenuse on the fact that the angled armor will provide better protection will be proven right in the tests over on the left side, but we'll just have to see. And that has shot and killed the Sherman, as expected. And that has definitely killed the T-34. Now, for our angled targets over here. That again, hope will prove a tougher target due to angling at this range. And there we go. There's the first, and there is the proof of my hypotenuse. Angled correctly, it has survived first shot. It has survived. It took 2 shots to kill it at that angle. You know, not too bad. Again, not sure where the other one actually landed. It could have landed on the hit the turret there, which is indeed possible. Next up, Sherman. Now, I don't know if that went through where. That could have gone through the front wheel arch. That definitely hit the front there. I'm just want to see if I can get a detonation or something from the front at this angle. The answer so far appears to be no. Yes, if I'm actually hitting, I think what happened there is I hit the drive wheel for the front sprocket, which is nowhere near as armored, and the sidewalls of Sherman are not as heavily armored, and is at a not as bad of an angle, so it simply plowed right through and in. Meanwhile, the APHE took 6 or so shots before a shot finally managed to destroy the tank. The other ones look like they may have simply been bouncing a little bit, or shattering, I don't know. Again, one criticism I do have of the IL2 tank crew is that it's hard to tell, especially looking at a tank afterwards, whether a shot penetrated or it's just a damaged decal and it didn't do anything at all. And that definitely hit because I got the warning, and that definitely bounced, although it may have bounced off the edge. That one did hit and did penetrate, although that may have also hit the lower front plate, which I believe is weaker, or the the hull machine gun as well. Again, lots of weak points. There we go. They did stand up better than I was expecting at this angle. Now, again, I'm going to cut here and we're going to break to the subcaliber. See how that does. And actually, we're also going to test the heat on the Tiger. See how well it does. Provided my calculations are right and they're roughly 45 degrees, as kind of look like they are, these tanks that I just finished shooting at may be immune to the Tiger at 800 meters. But we'll see. 90-ish all the way through. So I will do a quick cut and we'll come back for our subcaliber. Alright, and welcome back. We have now switched out ammunition, replenished targets, and we are ready to once again start blowing holes in them. Now, the subcaliber. My expectations for it is that it will front on decimate these guys, and at close range also go through. What will be interesting is longer range, or also against the angles, if it hits right, because it may just simply bounce off. Again, we're going to try and give it the best possible chance, which is roughly the all front meters, close as we can get. Aim down a little bit since I went a little bit over. And first shot away. That penetrated and killed. As expected, considering at muzzle, this gun has, with the subcaliber, 200 millimeters of penetration, and it retains over 129 millimeters of penetration up to 2 kilometers, which is higher than the relative thickness of the Sherman and the KB1s at their thickest relative angled parts at 45 degrees. Provided it doesn't bounce, it should be able to go straight through, which is my assumption. And actually, that was interesting. That That was very interesting. That to me looks like it almost bounced off. I'll have to look at the replay afterwards. That's interesting. Again, aiming. That went high. That went very high. And actually, that tank is still alive. Again. Once again, the smaller of the tanks in relativity, much like the last video, like the Panzer 3M, it's proving relatively resistant to the higher penetration rounds when it died instantly to APHE rounds. There it goes, it finally died. Although it did weirdly bounce 90 degrees to the right. Yeah, that's interesting. These are about 400, so we'll just set the hit Alt, spin. There, and again trying over the upper front plate. And at this angle, it has just bounced clean off. Second one hit and did kill, though. Alright, so 50-50 there. Not quite the T-34 standard. And that guy almost got his head off again. German. That bounced clean off. That one didn't. Again, 50-50 odds, actually, at even 400 meters against the front plate. Of course, at 400 meters at roughly that angle, you wouldn't use your APCR, you would use APHE, and that would just blow clean through the side. Of course, we're giving these tanks the best possible chance. And that just straight up killed the T-34 at that angle. It's interesting, because it didn't straight up kill the T-34 front on. I think there's also a similarity shown in the Panzer 3 testing. Although that may have been because at that angle it may have penetrated through and hit a ammunition village. This to about 800 meters, since that's basically what they're at. And begin the engagement on the next set of targets. Had a hit high, it looked like. It also didn't kill. Again, it also did not kill. Three. At number 4. Definitely hit and penetrated. Yeah, that definitely penetrated. Got 5 also hit. Number 6 hit. Got 7 hit. That's hit 8. Nine hit, and that finally killed it. Again, interesting survivability. Maybe pure luck due to the fact that he's on a hill and that's more equal to us. It was just skimming off the front plate most of the time. Who knows? Now, the Sherman, I don't expect to prove that difficulty. hit. Looks like it penetrated me at least. That definitely hit, but it also bounced at a very weird angle. Hit. And possibly went all the way through, or bounced. That was 4 shots total, so less than the KV-1. Then again, it doesn't have that extreme angled lower front, which may have helped the KV-1 survive. Then, of course, our E-34, which looks like it may have missed. Two, definitely hit. Three definitely hit, and that's a kill. Shot 1 may have missed, so that may have only taken 2 shots, but again, the fact that it survived the first shot at all, quite interesting. Of course, in real life, a single penetration would be really all it would take before the crew went, yeah, I'm out. Now again, this is one of the ones where I'm interested to see how angling like this comes to effect at this longer range, since at this range it's already seen that KV-1 at the very least, provided you hit the hull, had some interesting characteristics. That was a hit on the hull, definitely. Like. Okay, that hit the sprocket wheel, which instantly detonated the tank. I was trying to aim for more the center of the hull, and, well, I failed, but it did survive hits from the front of the hull, which, again, quite impressive. And that definitely looks like it bounced. Again, looks like a bounce and maybe even blown the tracks. Of course, again, at this kind of angle, you would aim for you would go APHE and shoot for the hull side, in my opinion, but testing this, that was 4. Of course, and there's 5. I don't know. That may have actually hit the hull side. Didn't be moving, but it did take more shots than I was expecting, and has proven my hypothesis that angles with APHE and HE make the surprisingly survivable, which makes a bit of sense because angles and shells don't like angles a whole lot. E-34 again looks like it survived, but again that may have just went straight through. And that's the detonation. There we go. However, I'm quite interested in that, return to main menu, in that KV-1 that we were engaging. I'm actually curious to see where they hit. So, before we go into heat, we're going to this one. We're going to take a quick look at that specific KV-1. This guy here. Trying to see where the shots hit. But the 4-minute mark-ish, I would say. No. Wait, yes. Trying to find the point where. Alright, so right there, we finished the engagement on that guy. Now the engagement with this KV-1 begins. just to see where the shots actually land. As soon as the gun engages. There it goes. I actually missed the first shot. Trying to see what the tank was. Nope. Go to there, then pause. Our guy is... Pause. Where did the first shot land? Actually, looks like it lands right in the turret. And due to the extreme angle of the turret, may bounce off, and that may have landed on the upper front. I mean, the upper middle. That definitely hit the turrets. And looks like it went clean through. That again looked like the upper front. Maybe, no, that may have been the lower plate. That was the engine hit. That was definitely the upper middle, and that clearly bounced. Again, possible upper middle. Again, kind of looks like the upper middle. Which has proven quite the effective bouncer of shells. And that was through the upper front. Right, actually, through the driver's hole, looked like. That was when the crew finally decided to bail out. Next up should be this guy. Might as well follow along in this test. That hit the hull front. That looked like it may have hit right by the driver's hole. Again, right around the driver's hole area. At least what it looks like to me. Yeah, it's right around the driver's hole, and it's actually pushing the tank back. And that one may have actually penetrated, because that's when the crew bails out. T-34, which I believe just dies in 2 shots. That one just hit the turrets. Not quite specific. Not quite as advanced armor modeling on the T-34. Yeah, it's quite surprising how long he lasted. It did take 1 shot. May have either missed or kill. Alright, next up is the Angle KV-1. We bring our guns to bear. I want to see where that killing shot landed. I think it was the drive wheel. It went through there and in through and hit the ammunition. That was hit the turret. As I expected, because I'm going to lower my aim in a second. Yeah, that was a hit on the hull front, and that looks like it just cleanly bounced. And yeah, that killing shot hit the sprocket wheel, penetrated in, so not the best test, but it did bounce at 45 degrees. And it also did quite well surviving head-on. In fact, a little bit better head-on. Yeah, and that was a bounce, and actually, I don't know. It may have hit on the transmission section. That definitely hit the front, and then of course you get damage decals on the side for some reason. And so somehow blew the tracks off. That's again hitting the front. Again, doesn't look like it's penetrating, but again, damage decals are hard to tell. And it looks like from this angle it's just cleanly bouncing off. Except for that shot, which did penetrate the whole front. At least from how I viewed it. Alright. Enough of that. And we'll begin with our heat testing. Alright, welcome back. And it's now time to begin the heat test of the Tiger. Now, the heat is going to have an advantage that the other ones won't, but it's going to have a different disadvantage. It's got a set penetration, no matter what range. It's always going to penetrate 90 millimeters. So, extreme range, like, 4 kilometers or whatever, heat would be your go-to, because it could still, mathematically, expectedly, go through the front of a Sherman. Whereas your armor-piercing shells would cleanly bounce off said Sherman. Or just spall due to a lack of penetration. Now, testing begin, and see how it does against the surprisingly tough hull front of a KV-1. It actually went low. Alright, so for this, use the bottom of the triangle, looks like. That actually looks like it might give better damage decals than the other types. High. I'm aiming for the hull front, of course. That hit and set something on fire. I don't know what it set on fire, but it set something on fire. That hit and it definitely went through. In fact, it may have just gone straight through the driver's port. Okay, that hit and blew the fuel tanks off. But it definitely looked like it hit the whole front. Because it explains what the fire was, and it's just the fuel tanks igniting. Yeah, she's proving actually quite resilient. Again, hit. Alright, it's proving quite tough to actually kill with the heat. Except that killed. Of course, I can say it. Then again, that did hit the lower front plate. At least it looked like it hit the lower front plate to me. That's 3 crewmen out, 4 crewmen out. Looks like the whole crew is actually going to survive that. Except for maybe the driver, since it did look a lot like I put a shell right down his vision port. Next up, our Sherman. Direct hit. And again, that should have the penetration to go through. Should and will is, of course, 2 different things. Once again, it's actually proven quite resilient. Again, quite resilient, but then again, I don't have somebody on the other end of this for me that I can go, hey, what's happening to your tank right now? Like, can you drive? Is the gunner dead? Is the driver dead? These questions I cannot ask. I do not have somebody that I'm able to go, hey, what is happening right now inside this vehicle? Because for all I know, the driver and bound machine gunner could be dead. It's just a case that the metal stream is not hitting a thing. Because that's what heat shell is, it's a stream of molten copper. Okay, this is defying my expectations. I actually kind of expected this to have potentially killed the Sherman by now. Alright, so the Sherman is getting oil fit, it seems. Let's try the T-34. I expect this, though, not to. But then again, I expected the Sherman to be penetrated and the crew to have bailed out. Then again, yeah, the crew has bailed out now. Or just died entirely. There's no hatches opening up. I assume the crew has just completely died inside the tank. Yeah, it may just simply be a case of the molten metal is just simply barely getting through. Probably is, and then it's not able to deal enough damage to the inside of the Sherman. Okay, now, I have to be very careful with this angle here, with these guys being closer. As to not hit... In fact, these guys may be too far angled, at least the KB-1. So I don't expect them to penetrate at all. Actually, since I have no expectations for this to penetrate due to the fact that this should be well outside the heat's penetration capabilities, I'm just going to see what happens if I hit one into the side of this of the KB-1. Whether or not the crew will bail out. The answer so far appears to be no. That's blown the fuel tanks off. And destroyed the tracks. That has detonated the tank. Alright. So, it's probably a case of just barely enough penetration to get through, combined with heat having to hit a very specific point. Interestingly enough, one guy got out. It's gonna be quite interesting. Next up, German, which over I don't really expect, again, due to the angle, it to kill. In fact, I expect it to do basically nothing. Except maybe blow the tracks off, which looks like it has done. And again, okay, in this case my expectations are being met quite handsomely by the, except for that Sherman. And the KB-1, they are proving relatively tough to kill with the heat. Now we're going to do the same thing, just... And that has instantly killed. Okay, so yeah. Heat definitely wasn't getting through, and then... T-34, I expect the same thing to happen. No penetration, or lack of penetration, due to the effective thickness of the armor at this angle, assuming the assumptions we've made, it's 110 millimeters, so this angle it should never penetrate, which it appears to definitely not be doing. As we're pulling the tracks off, so we're going to adjust right, as always, and then just confirm that yes, it will kill. That Sherman somehow survived. I'm just going to see what happens if I place one into the turret. Or roughly the turret area. Proving quite resilient is the answer. In fact, extremely resilient. In fact, it's still alive. Which I really was not expecting. And again, this could be a factor of additional sloping due to the fact that he's on a slight uphill. Alright, next we're going to move on to our roughly 800 meter test. They're roughly 800 meters because they're between 700 and 800 meters. They're in a straight line. It's roughly 800 meters. That went well low, and once again proving that it's roughly the bottom of the triangle for heat. And that actually went low as well. So this range, I'm going to use the stick. Hit, first hit, so we're going to count it from there. And that is killed. So yes, I think this hill is causing some angle problems. True test will be with this Sherman. It's now more flat. That hits. Against the turret, not what I'm aiming for. All front, definite hit. It's 2 hits. Yes, once again, the Sherman is proving more resilient. Four hits. Five hits. Again, it looks like it's hitting center of mass, so it shouldn't be hitting anything in the way. It's just proving extremely tough to kill. Which is actually a bit of a surprise, considering I was actually expecting this round to be able to kill the Sherman due to it having roughly 80 or so millimeters of armor protection at that frontal angle. But I guess it's just close enough to the mark that it's able to survive. With just enough angle. Interesting though that the KV-1 should perish when it as well has roughly 88 millimeters of effective thickness even on the flattest part of its hull front, which is what I've been aiming for and what it looks like I've been hitting. Unless I'm hitting low. That may be it. Yeah, that was definitely directly into the hull front. We'll give it a couple more shots and we'll move over to the T-34 off to the left there. Just to make sure it wasn't a case of me hitting the transmission and that just absorbing the shots. We'll give it one last one, then we'll move over to the T-34. Alright, T-34 time. That has hit and killed the T-34. Very well, and I'm not even going to bother trying against angled targets, considering we've seen before that against angled targets with angled hulls like these tanks have, it's not even worth shooting heat at the front. Go for the sides. So thus, my informal penetration guide for the Tiger is this: APHE, unless at ranges greater than about, I say, 2 kilometers in most situations. If they're angled, aim for the hull, not the hull front. Front on, about a kilometer, kilometer and a half. APCR, again, 2.5 kilometers, I'd say maybe. Since at about that range, it's got penetration, but then again, at that distance, you may find some tanks to be more resilient than expected due to angling of their hull and all that. And then heat, I'd save that for 3 kilometer up shots, which I very much doubt will happen. Again, possible against side on targets. Hull front, especially against tanks like the Sherman, especially the Sherman, in fact, in these tests, have proven Sherman appears to be extremely resilient. In fact, the KV-1 also extremely resilient to heat. Sherman, in fact, is still very much alive. But the amount of hits it took not only to the hull, but also to the weaker turret, which has, well, relatively a little bit more armor than the hull, does not have the angling the hull has. And again, the situation is repeated at long range. In fact, there may be one possible penetration hit. Again, this is where I wish these weren't decals, but they marked hits, actual physical hits. Because it looks like there's one through the driver's hole, but again, I can't tell due to not being able to just jump into this tank and go, what has broken? There's my formal guide. Basically, only carry a couple of rounds of heat, mostly APHE, and some APCR, which, as long as you don't get anything angled, at longer ranges will probably do fine. But stay away from things angled with APCR. Well, most things actually, considering these tanks have shown a surprising resilience compared to the fact you hear stories about the Tiger massacring Shermans. Well, depending on the ammunition, probably true, but in this case, especially with heat, I prefer to be in the Sherman